Let us learn how to record your presentation in PowerPoint with audio and video in Microsoft 365. Probably this is the only video you need to watch on this topic. The first step is to get your slide deck ready, complete with animation. In my case, I have a presentation with 3 slides. And the second thing you do is to ensure that you have your notes ready for each of your slides. If you notice here, I have my notes for each of the slides. I would use the speaker notes as my script for narration. Once done, you can close the notes pane. Then let us go to the first slide and let us start setting up our recording. To start recording, you can go to the Record tab in PowerPoint. Sometimes you may not have this tab available. It doesn't matter. You will always find this option here called Record if you are using Microsoft 365. If you are not using Microsoft 365 and you want this record button, it's very simple. You right click on any of the tabs, go to Customize the Ribbon option, and here on the right hand side you would notice that there is this option for Customize the Ribbon. You would see by default that this particular option for record might be left unchecked. You check it and you say OK, and that will ensure that the Record tab is brought back to your PowerPoint ribbon. Now, to make things simple for myself, I am going to click on the Record button here, and that takes me to the Recording Studio interface. Inside the Recording Studio interface, let us set up our recording environment. For that, let us go to this option here called Select More Options for Recording. And when you do that, you can see the option to have your microphone and camera set up. For microphone, you can click here and you will have the drop down available. You can choose the microphone that you want to connect to. The next is camera. In this case, I have an integrated camera for my laptop, and the other one is the webcam that I'm using now, and I have checked that. Now, once I have chosen my microphone and camera, I can switch this option on. When I click Turn Camera On, you can immediately see that my camera is on in the preview. Now, talking about the preview, let us see what kind of a view we have and what are the options that we have available for us to have our view of the slide and the notes. Now, what you see in the default mode is this view called as the teleprompter view. In this, you can see the speaker notes that you had written for each of the slides, and this is the speaker notes for this slide. And for the next slide, I can see my speaker notes, and for the next one, I can see here. Now, there is a very interesting thing that you would notice. If you see in this slide, my speaker notes is less, and therefore I don't really have a scrolling button. But if I see in the next one, I have the scrolling button available. So that means there is no limitation to the length of the notes that you can write for each slide. Now, there is an even more interesting option available in Microsoft 365, and that is the option for scroll. If you click on this option here called Enable Auto Scroll, you can see that you can control the speed of the scroll. This is like using the actual teleprompter, which means that this text will start scrolling automatically as you speak, and you can adjust the speed of the scroll. So this is as good a teleprompter that you can get for recording your presentation slides. Now let me close this. I don't really want that option. I just wanted to show you that such an option is available in PowerPoint. Now let us see what other options we have in the panel. Here you see the timer option. This is the time that you've taken for explaining the current slide, and this is the total time taken for all your slides recorded so far. Then you have the next option here called Retake Recording. This allows you to retake any of your recording for a specific slide or for your entire slide deck. We will talk more about this tool as we do some re-recording for our slides. The next button you see here is the Edit button. Let us say while recording your presentation, you happen to see that your slide doesn't have all the information that you wanted, and you wanted to add some additional information before recording that particular slide. You can do so by clicking on this Edit button, and that takes you to this environment. Here you can make your changes, and once you are done making the changes, you can come back to the record and you will see that the interface comes back to the way it was before. The next button you see here is the Export button. When you click on that, it will take you to this page where you can export your video by choosing the resolution you want. You can write the name of your presentation, then click on Browse. So you can select the place where you want to have your recording stored, and then you can choose export and it will be stored as an MPEG-4 video, which is the standard format. So this MPEG-4 video can be edited in any other program later if you want to. Now let me hit cancel. The next option I have for exporting my video is to customize my export settings. I can click on customize export and that takes me to this page where I can choose the resolution. By default, the resolution is full HD. I can click on it and I can choose to have my recorded video in even Ultra HD or 4K format. If you want to have the recording in lower resolutions, you can choose so as well. Let us go back to the recording environment that we were before by clicking on record. So we have understood all the tools and buttons in this panel here. Now, these two are the options for you to increase the font size or reduce the font size for your notes. And this is the preview window. There is something which is very important for you to note here. You would notice that for this slide, I actually have an animation. Let me go back to edit. When I go to slideshow, you would notice that this is the first stage. Then when I click, you can see that there is this animation that happens to reveal the definition. And then there is this second definition revealed on click. If you notice in the record environment, you'll see that there is no animation here. Why? It is because this is the teleprompter preview window. So naturally, you will not find any animation at this point. However, when I hit my record button, you would see that the animation plays. So you don't really have to panic when you don't see animations in the preview. Then to advance or go back to the previous slides, you can use this option here. So slide 1, slide 2, slide 3 can be navigated using this option here. Then we have these options here for annotation. We'll talk about this a little bit later. Let us see what this option is. This is select the camera mode. I can go here. I can have the camera mode in the show background mode or in the blur background mode. Now, I'm using a plain background for me, so therefore you may not actually see the difference. But if you have a very busy background, you can choose blur background option and that will blur your background and therefore your audience won't get distracted when you have your camera view shown. Then we have this other option, which is a very interesting one. We can see our presentation in one of three views. The first one is the teleprompter view that you are currently on. The second one is the presenter view. When I click on that, you can see that my view changes to this mode. And there are a lot of advantages to having your presentation in this mode rather than in the teleprompter mode, because you can see your notes here. And more importantly, you can see your next step. When I go back to say slide 2, you can see that my next slide view is shown here, and that allows me to have smoother transition from one slide to the next. There is a separate video that I recorded on the power of using presenter view to enhance your presentation skills. I will leave a link to that video in the iCard. You can click on it and watch that video after completing this video. And if I don't want to be in the presenter view, I can choose the third option called slide view, and this is the view that you get. This is the view that you would normally use if you don't have notes written for each of your slides. The choice is completely yours. Now, let me go back to the presenter view here and let me talk about these annotation tools. The first one that you see here is the laser pointer. I can point to any of the areas on my slide using nothing but my mouse, and this will show as a laser pointer. The next option that I have here is a pen. I can choose any of these colors that you see here for my pen. Let us say I want to use this purple color. I can click on it. I can use the pen tool and draw and annotate on my slide. And if I want to highlight certain areas, I can go to this highlighter option and I can highlight like this. You can see that highlighter is shown pretty nicely. And if I want to erase any of these elements, I can always go to this option here called erase, and I can click on this and you can see that each element is erased by the eraser. So those are the various annotation tools available here at the bottom. Now we have a fair understanding of the various tools and buttons available in the Recording Studio interface. Now we will actually do some sample recording. I'll also do re-recording of a certain slide so that you can understand the re-recording option as well. So you have full control in the way you present your information. Let me go back to my first slide. I'm going to start my recording. The notes that you see here will not be visible in the final output, so you don't really have to worry about that. So let us start recording the first slide. This is the first slide. You can replace the photo on the title slide with your own photos easily. This is the second slide. You can use the slide to present terms and definitions. A scrolling option will appear when you have a lot of notes to talk from. Here is an example of that. And when I click on the slide, you can see that I have my animations coming. So that is how I would do my narration. And then let us go to the last slide. This is the third slide. These are some templates taken from our comprehensive all-in-one PowerPoint bundle. Now I have paused my recording. There are two reasons for it. One is to show you how pausing of a recording works. When I show the final output after resuming my recording, you can see that there will not really be any pause shown, and this portion that I'm talking to you right now will not be heard or seen by the viewers because the recording has been paused. Whenever you do your recording, sometimes in the middle of your presentation, you might get an idea and you want some time to think through that idea and include that as part of your presentation. In such cases, it is always a good idea to click on the pause button so you get yourself some time to gather your thoughts and then resume your recording. Now, when you do that, you will also notice another interesting thing here. The timer has been stopped. So when you hit that resume recording button, you will see that the timer continues again. I'm going to hit the resume recording button. Now, this is the continuation of my recording after I hit the pause button. I highly recommend that you use this whenever you want and whenever you want to take some breather while recording your session. There I hit my red button again, which means I have stopped my recording. Now the presentation is done. Now I can close this, and I want you to observe a very important thing here. These are the slides that we have recorded for, and you can see that for each slide we have an individual media file available. This recording is only for this slide, and this one is only for this slide, and this one is for this slide. Now there are advantages to this and there are some disadvantages to this as well. I'll talk about the advantages first. When I have individual media files for individual slides, I have the option to make changes to a specific slide, to re-record for a specific slide, and I have full control in the way my final output comes. So if I am a perfectionist and if I have a lot of hesitation in recording a particular slide, I can always do my re-recording in a better way and have the final output in the most polished way possible. So that is an advantage. The disadvantage though is, since every slide is its own media, you would notice that it is not possible for you to continue your narration between the slides, which means when you continue narrating while moving from one slide to the next, you will notice that the portion of your recording while you move from one slide to the next would actually get cut, and the output will not really be nice to look at. So make sure that you finish your narration for a certain slide, then you move to the next slide and then start your narration, because you need to always keep in mind that each slide is its own media. Let us first go through our replays. So let us go to the first slide. I'm going to play, and whatever sound that you would get here is the sound from inside the video. I'll give my observation of the recording a bit later. This is the first slide. You can replace the photo on the title slide with your own photos easily. This is the second slide. You can use the slide to present terms and definitions. A scrolling option will appear when you have a lot of notes to talk from. Here is an example of that. And when I click on the slide, you can see that I have my animations coming. So that is how I would do my narration. And then let us go to the last slide. At the end, you had noticed that my narration was not complete, and that is because purposely I continued to narrate while I moved from the second slide to the third slide. You can see that a part of the narration got cut. Let me show that once again. Let me go to slideshow, and here I can actually fast forward and play from any point of time. So that is a very important thing for you to note, and that is what I want to show you right narration. Now. Then let us go to the last. Did you see? This is how the output will be if you don't take enough care to stop your narration for each slide before you move on to the next slide. Let us go to the third slide and see the narration. Last slide. So it started somewhere from the middle. Third slide. These are some templates taken from our comprehensive all-in-one PowerPoint bundle. Now this is the continuation of my recording after I hit the pause button. I highly recommend that you use this whenever you want and whenever you want. Now, did you notice the point where I paused and resumed my recording? It almost felt like there was no pause at all. You noticed it only because I said so. That is the smoothness with which you can record if you are aware of how to use the various tools and buttons in the recording interface. Now, once you finish your recording, you can export your recording as a video either from the Recording Studio interface or from this interface. When you click on Export to Video option, you would reach exactly the same page that you would reach if you had chosen the export option in the record environment as well. So if you click on Export, you will reach the exact same place. Now let us see what happens when I hit this Close button. I get this dialog box which says export your video before exiting. When you hit the exit button, you would go back to the previous interface, or you can stay and export and your video will be exported. Now, I'm going to choose the place where I will have my export happening, and this is going to be somewhere in my desktop. So let me go to the desktop option and say record video to and say export, and you will see that this is getting exported as a video. It happens fairly fast and the output will be in the MP4 format as I mentioned earlier. You can see the resolution of the recording, which is 1080. I can view and share video from this page itself. I can click on this and I will get this warning about the potential security concern, everything. And I say yes, because I want to continue with it. And then I'm going to say OK to open that video. And this is my video. Slide. You can replace the photo on the title slide with your own photos. Now let me close this. I want to show you the other option of saving this as a PowerPoint show. When you click on this option and you choose the place where you want to have this show recorded, I can go to desktop once again and say save, and you will see that the save as type is PowerPoint show. Let me show you how that one works. When I go to save, it doesn't take much time at all because this is now stored locally on this computer. And when I go to that specific file, you would notice this icon, which is the icon for PowerPoint slideshow. When I double click on this to open, you can see that the presentation starts and you can see that the video starts playing. Now, the beauty of this is when I go down here, I have this option here, which is like the slide sorter option that allows me to move to different slides. I don't really have to watch this entire video recording from the start. I can select a specific part of the presentation and I can have my video shown from that point forward. So for example, in this case, if I want to go to the third slide, you can see that the recording for the third slide is playing. These are some templates. So that is the benefit of saving it as a show. Now I'm going to show you how to re-record a certain slide if there is a mistake instead of recording your entire slide deck. For that, all you need to do is to go to record option. Let us say I want to re-record my second slide. Here is slide 2 of 3. All I need to do for that is to go here and start retake video on current slide. And this recording will be replacing my earlier recording. So let us see how this is done. This is the re-recorded version for the second slide. So you can see the difference between the first version and the second version. And this will seem there I made a mistake purposely. There is something that I said, I don't really want to have that as part of my recording. I'll show you a little later how to cut that portion off from this particular slide recording. So I'm going to stop this. So that completes my recording for the second slide. Now I'm going to close this. The narration for the first slide stays. For the second slide, let us see what is my recording. This is the re-recorded version for the second slide. So you can see the difference between the first version and the second version. And this will seem... See, can you see there is something that I said and I'm not really happy with that portion. Is there any way to trim out that portion? It is possible. Many people, even the advanced users of PowerPoint, are not aware that it is possible for you to trim the video after you finish your recording. Let me show you how it is done. Let us select this video, go to the playback option. Here I have the option to trim the video. Let me click on this. I can move this a little earlier. I can clearly see the waveform and decide where I want to have that trimmed. So I have trimmed it till this point and say OK. Now let us watch this. This is the re-recorded version for the second slide. So you can see the difference between the first version and the second version. That's it. The further portion is not shown. That is the beauty of this particular method. Let us say for a specific slide, I want to show myself completely. That is, this needs to be my full video, full page video. How can I do that? It's very simple. I can select this video. I can go to the video format option. I can go to reset design and say reset design and size, and there it is. My full video is shown. Maybe I can zoom out a little bit so I can place it exactly on the slide area. Now, when I go to slideshow, this is the re-recorded version for the second slide. So you can see the difference between the first version and the second version. And once it is done, naturally, I can go to my next slide by going to page down option. And there the presentation continues. That is the beauty of inserting your complete video for the entire page using this method called reset design. Let me hit Ctrl Z so we go back to the way it was. The next very interesting tip is it is possible for you to change the shape of this video. You can see that by default it has got the circular form. I can go back to the video format option and I can change the shape. For example, when I go to video shape, I can choose this option here called rounded corners rectangle, and you can see that my video is now in a very different shape. For the second slide. Now this naturally begs the next question, which is if I have a slide which is slightly busy and I have some content spilling over and my video is overlapping some part of my content, is there any way I can move the position of my video for a specific slide? I can do that. For example, when I go to this, you can see that my name here, name of the presenter, is getting obscured by this video here. So for this specific slide alone, I can move my position right up. Now, when I go to slideshow, you can see that this now is the first slide. You can replace the photo. My video is playing here. And for my next slide, this video is playing here. So you have full control to adjust the position of your video after you finish your recording session. Now there is one more interesting thing. Let us say for a specific slide, I don't really want to show the slide, but I want to show only my view for the entire screen. Is there any shortcut for that? Yes. Let me go to this slide and I want to show myself in a complete fashion here. I can do that by going to the playback option. For that specific slide alone, I can say play full screen. Now let us see what happens. Here is the first slide. Here my video is in a circle. You can replace the photo on the title slide with your own photos easily. This is the re-recorded version for the second slide. So for the second slide, you can see that I have my full version or my full view. And finally, you have the option to save these individual clips as media files themselves. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let us say I have this second slide's narration. I can right click and I can go to this option here called Save Media As, or I can get the same option by going to playback and say Save Media As. You can see that the Save As type is media file. I'm going to select this. I'm going to change this as something called temp1, and then let us place this somewhere in the desktop and say Save. Now this is the media file and you can see that it is in the MP4 format. When I click, this is the re-recorded version for the second slide. So did you notice that it is possible for me to save the individual files for individual narration as separate media files, and that gives me a lot of flexibility if I want to play around with those clips in some other program. Of course, like any other video file, you have full control in the way your video appears. If you want to crop it, you can crop it. If you want to add a video border, you can do so. If you want to add some video effects like say reflection or 3D or soft edges, you can do so. If you want to use any of the styles, you can do so for the video. Everything is totally available for you when you use this option of recording your narration right inside PowerPoint. Now you would have noticed that inside each tool and button inside PowerPoint, there is so much hidden. There are so many capabilities that are not known to the normal users of PowerPoint. You get to learn all these intricacies and the insider secrets only when you work with PowerPoint for years together. I share all those insider secrets and wisdom in my course called PowerPoint Mastery 2.0. Our PowerPoint Mastery 2.0 is arguably the most comprehensive and creative PowerPoint training available on the web. I will leave a link to this program in the description box below the video. You can click on the link and find more details about this useful program. And if you want to continue to learn about PowerPoint, then you can click on this video next called Create an Interactive Slide Deck in PowerPoint, the link for which is shown right now on your screen. Click on the link and watch that video and you will pick up some more interesting tips and tricks on PowerPoint. I'll see you inside that video.